What is going on, guys? Welcome to your 19th video, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you guys how to create those dynamic links on the top right side of the web page. So for example, when a user first goes to this website, they open their web browser and type this in, they're going to see the links register or log in. If you don't have an account, you obviously register, but if you do, you can go ahead and click log in. Now you're taken to a login page where you can type your username and your password, and if everything's correct and hit submit, you log in and a couple things are going to happen. First of all, you're taken to your main account homepage, and second of all, the links on the top right hand side are now changed. Instead of log in, they now say log out, my account, add item, or messages. Now, even though you may not be able to tell right now, well, obviously you can't tell, but whenever you receive a new message, say for example you receive 5 new messages that day while you are at school, this messages is going to be bold and there's going to be a 5 in parentheses. So I don't have any new messages, or I read them all, and that's why we get this plain link. But whenever you do receive a new message, then this link is going to be bold and show the number of messages. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to create a new function that's pretty much going to be responsible for echoing out the links. Now, I want to do that because even though the links go right here, it's not good to have all this code in one function, because that is the key, I'm telling you guys, to making a big program. If you go ahead and put all of code inside one function, you guys are going to go crazy. The key to making any successful large program is breaking it up into easily manageable pieces. If you guys learn anything from me ever, it's that the key to making an successful piece of software is breaking it up into easily understandable, easily to manage pieces, and that's what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and make a function for top right links, and I'm just going to name this function top right links. Now, let me go ahead and talk to you guys about how social networks or any site that you build in PHP works whenever a user logs in. Whenever you log into a site, you're going to be assigned something called a session ID or a session variable. Now, this is pretty much a variable that sticks with you as long as you are using the site. You get a unique variable that says, okay, this is the user. So what happens whenever we're coding this is we can test whether that user has a session variable assigned or not. Whenever they log in, they get one assigned, so we can test if they don't have one assigned yet, then that means that they must be logged out. If they do have a session variable assigned, then we can go ahead and just use that variable to, get their information or whatever. And you guys are going to see a little bit more about this whenever we talk about the register page, but for now, just remember that we can test whether the session variable exists for that user to tell whether they're logged in or not. So let's go ahead and make a simple if statement to do that. So we can say something like if is set session, which is a global variable, in, I know I didn't set a variable yet because we didn't build the register code yet, but we are going to be calling our session variable user underscore ID. Now we actually want to test first if this is not set. So basically, if a session ID variable is not set, that means that the user has not logged in yet, or they are logged out. So if they are not logged in yet, what do we want to do? Well, we just want to echo some code that says register or log in. So the first thing we want to do is build an href and set it equal to our register, which is register.php. Let me just go ahead and finish this. So we basically make a link to something called a register, and that's what we see if we log out right here. Now, before I make my login link, as you can see, it's separated by this little pipe sign, so just don't forget that. So now we have a register link that links to register.php, and I also want to create a login link. So let me just go ahead and copy that code, cheat a little bit here, and the login page is going to name login.php, and the text is just going to be log in. So basically, if they do not have a session variable set, that means that they must not have logged in yet, or they are logged out. Whenever the user is logged out, they have the option of registering if they're a new user, or if they're just not logged in, they can just go ahead and log in. Simple enough. That's all we need to do for that set of variables. The next set of variables, however, is a little more complicated because in the case that they are logged in, then they must have a session variable set. So the first thing I like to do is, instead of using this huge, long, ugly variable, I like to store it in a simple variable called x. And that is because it just makes it a little bit easier typing x rather than this huge mama jama variable. So the first thing I want to do is I want to see if they have any new messages. So if we go ahead and go to our database, I included a table called messages in here. This is pretty much a table that's going to store all messages for all users. Now, it of course has an ID, what number message. It's just an identifier for the message because all tables should have a primary key unless you absolutely can't have one. The receiver, which is pretty much the ID number of pretty much who is receiving the message. The sender is the ID number of who sent it. The subject, like, hey, party at my house tonight. And the body with all the information. The date sent and the status. Now, the status of the message is going to be either read if you already read the message, unread if the user has not yet read the message, or deleted if they deleted the message. I think those are my statuses. So anyways, that's what the messages table is. So now we can go ahead and utilize that information. So what we want to do is we want to check not only how many messages that receiver has, but we want to count the number of unread messages. So let's go ahead and do that by hitting result equals. Now in order to query a database, go ahead and put MySQL underscore query, and you go ahead and you type your query in here. Now go ahead and type your query in double quotation marks, and what we want to do is we want to select all from messages, and I typed that wrong, messages where receiver is equal to X. So pretty much if my ID number is 20, I want to select all the messages where I am the receiver, all of the messages that people sent me. Now furthermore, I only want to select the messages where the status is equal to unread, because the only time I want a prompt to appear on the top right hand side of the links giving me saying, hey, you got a new message, is if I haven't read that message yet. If I got 100 messages yesterday but I already read them, I don't want it to say, hey, you got 100 new messages, because I already read them. Make sense? Good. So after this, what we want to do is we just want to add an or die MySQL underscore error. Now typically you don't want any error messages to pop up on your web page. Why? Because then it might give critical information about your database that malicious people can use to hack into it. But for testing purposes, I like to output all the error messages because I probably typed something wrong somewhere in here, and whenever we're testing it, we can see our errors easily. But remember later on to either delete these or just suppress all error messages in another way.